So hello again, my name is Josh. Don't bother with my last name, it's too messy to even try to remember. Josh is just fine. I've been working here at St. Thomas for 7 years. I'm into my 8th year, and for over 5 of those I've been working with off-campus students. So I've been doing this for a long time, and in the years I've been doing this, I've come to realize that parents and guests tend to have 3 major categories that they have questions about. And the ones that I'm familiar with are parking and transportation, food, and that kind of eating on campus so your student doesn't starve. And then just kind of balancing time and connection on campus, getting involved and figuring all that out. Does that sound like where probably most of the questions rest? Okay, I'm seeing some nods. I'm really comfortable with questions throughout, so if you just shout something out, put your hand up, I'll repeat it for the recording, but we can make it pretty casual. But I'll just kind of go through those 3 categories, and if I miss something or if there's something you have a question about that I didn't say, feel free to let me know. Sound good? Cool. Parking and transportation. If your student is planning on driving to campus, they will need to purchase a parking permit to park on campus. A commuter parking permit costs $105 for the semester or $200 for the year. So you save a grand $10 if you buy it for the year right at the beginning. I would never call that cheap. Parking is $200 out of someone's pocket is not cheap. But I will point out, 2 years ago, our prices were actually $250 for the year, so we've actually been able to adjust down, which is not something a lot of people do. And then also, I know area high schools that actually charge more than that for parking, and I know the U charges more than that for parking and things like that. Parking is pretty convenient around here if you do purchase a parking permit. I really recommend our commuting students park in the Anderson parking facility, which is on the corner of Cretin and Grand. It's the big 4-story ramp that maybe if you've come to campus before today you parked in. There's no additional cost to park in there once you purchase the permit. So the student just pulls up to the ramp, swipes their ID, it opens, and they can find a parking spot. The reason I recommend parking there's a handful of other commuter lots across campus, but they're smaller and they tend to be shared with faculty and staff, and they fill up in the morning. And so if your student goes to look at those other lots, they may drive around looking for spots and lose a bunch of time that way rather than just going to the ramp, finding a spot, and knowing how long it takes to get to class from that ramp. And in the years we've had that ramp, I've seen it full 3 days, and 2 of those were related to Dr. Sullivan's inauguration last year. So big campus-wide events that are well publicized when that's going to happen. People know in advance. Plus covered in the summer from shade and from winter snow. Yeah. There's not presence, but there's security cameras, and our public safety does patrol campus all day long, 24/7, and so they certainly would be going through there. Let's see. Every once in a while I work with a student or I run into a student who tries to avoid purchasing the parking permit and try to find street parking around campus. I'll tell you, they often end up paying more in parking ticket fines than if they had just purchased the permit outright. The vast majority of parking around our neighborhood around our campus is regulated by St. Paul. You have to be a resident of that street to park there and get the resident permit in the city of St. Paul. So there's a few places you have to really hunt to find them, and it's a lot safer and easier just to plan on doing the permit and parking that way. But every once in a while it happens. The neighbors have asked for that to be well regulated, and they've gotten it, and so it will get ticketed if they park where they shouldn't be. Other than driving, another great option is Metro Transit. Our parking and transportation service sells a Metro Transit pass that allows unlimited use of the Metro Transit system 24/7 as long as there's buses running. And that pass is good on the buses and the light rails. It's basically good anywhere Metro Transit runs except for the North Star commuter line that runs up to like Big Lake or something like that. I'm getting there. So it's $150 a semester for that permit, or that pass. So obviously that's a little bit more than the parking permit, but you're not paying for gas and insurance and maintenance and those kind of things. Plus, I always hear from a student or two who's upset that they have to use the bus pass instead of being able to drive, and I point out to them, if you're stuck for an hour on a bus in rush hour traffic, at least that's time you can be using. You can be reading, you can be prepping for that exam, you can be, engaging in something. Whereas if you're stuck for an hour in rush hour traffic in a car, the best you have is your radio. So there's a lot of really great ways to make that work. We have 3 or 4 different routes that come right to our campus, a number that are nearby. The new light rail just up on University is not that far away, and there's routes that basically go right from stops there to our campus here. If you want to check out if it's a good option for you, I recommend metrotransit.org. Their website is far more up to date and accurate than any of the paper maps you're ever going to find around. And they have a trip planner tool where you can put in your starting address and your ending address, and really they'll give you 3 or 4 different options of timing and those kind of things. So I'd recommend checking that out if you're thinking about it.
So if you're, because I'm not from here, if you're driving from Dinkytown to here,
There would certainly be bus routes, and in fact, Dinkytown is over by the U, and the new light rail that runs along University Avenue goes right up along the U as well, so that might be a very good option.
how long would it take you if you got on it?
You know, they say from downtown to Minneapolis to downtown St. Paul on that new light rail is about a 45-minute trip, and you're not going that full distance. So I haven't ridden it. I don't know off the top of my head. Metrotransit.org would tell you the exact time, but it's probably no more than a 20-minute light rail ride, and then maybe another 5 to 10-minute bus ride after that would be my gut, but they're the experts, not me. I'm just trying to figure that out. So. Depends. Rush hour traffic on I-94 between here and Minneapolis is awful, so it could take a lot longer than that. Yeah, light rail and the bus might be quicker.
Right on a bus route, right outside his door, or her.
Yeah.
Bus would probably be better.
That's another bus that goes right into that area. Yeah, it comes right here. It could be. It could be. There's so many different routes to get around the Twin Cities with Metro Transit. I wish I could have them all memorized, but people come from everywhere. Yeah, so the website really is a great tool to start to figure that out. If your student is thinking about living close enough, or some people do this from really far away, biking, Public Safety recommends that you purchase a good lock. They haven't seen any problems with those hard U-shaped locks, so it's got a real stiff U on one side and a bar on the other. And that they do require that it be locked to a bike rack, not to a tree or a sign or something like that. Their joke is invest in the lock, not the bike, but you can all do what you want with that. A couple other things that I think are helpful since I talked about public safety to know. Public safety can jumpstart a car if it won't start in the winter. They can get you into your car if you lock your keys in it. I'll confess I've used both those services since I've been working here, so I know it works and it works well. They also have a walking escort program where they will walk with you anywhere on campus or up to 6 blocks off campus. And so if your student's studying late in the library one night and needs to get back to the parking ramp, and they'll call them up, and in 10 minutes or less they'll have someone out there to walk with them. Same if they parked or need to get somewhere a few blocks off campus, same kind of thing. I like to point out and make sure the students know this, that they don't like the cold and they don't love walking long distances any more than the rest of us, and so a lot of times they'll just pull up with a public safety vehicle and give the student a ride. So they say it's not a taxi service. I say if thinking of it as a taxi service gets students to be safer, I don't really care. We want them to take advantage of that service 24/7, free of charge, anywhere on campus or up to 6 blocks off. They'll fudge the 6 blocks every once in a while. If it's like 7 or 8 too, you can sweet talk them and they'll probably hook you up. That's my quick parking and transportation. Any questions that I might have missed? I'm going to take that as a no. Oh wait, no. Yep.
One really quick question. For the parking permits, are we guaranteed a spot then?
No. It's certainly guaranteed, or you get a right to a spot, you get the right to park on campus, but it doesn't guarantee a spot. But like I said, that parking ramp, I've seen it full 3-4 times tops. And then there's another large surface lot just past there that is another good backup option if the ramp ever did happen to be full. I used to hear a lot more complaints about parking and not finding spots before we built that ramp, obviously. It increased our parking spots on campus by a little over 150. So we certainly gained quite a bit there.
What was the price on Allegheny, and how much it was for those slots?
The permit is, the parking permit is $105 for a semester or $200 for the year. Okay, I'm going to move on to food because it's almost lunchtime for me, and so I'm hungry, but I know. Bad joke, clearly. There are a lot of different ways and places to eat on campus, but I have kind of one core message about food, especially for first-year commuters, that I'd love to hear and that I want to make sure you understand. My ideal, and this is my preference and my suggestion, is that your student is equipped to eat in the View, our main cafeteria, as often as they like. Now let me explain why, and then I'll explain how. The why is this. It's about 10% of the first year class that lives off campus, so that means 90% of your students' first year peers are living on campus. And on-campus students are required to have a meal plan, and they're required to have a meal plan that has them eating the vast majority of their meals in the view, in the cafeteria. And so, if your student is in class, and making friends with other first years, and they say, hey, let's go grab lunch after class is done, odds are those residential first years are going to go want to eat in the view because that's where their meal plan has them eating. So we know people connect over food. We know that that's important. I want your students to be able to connect with their fellow students. And so that's a great way to be able to continue that and do that. I know that's not going to work for everyone, but that's just my kind of message. Here's a couple of different ways how. One, they are certainly able to purchase a meal plan. Meal plans are sold in blocks. So if we call it a block 30, it means they get 30 meals for a semester. So if they swiped their meal plan card, they could walk into the view 30 times in a semester. So that's one option. What you have to do is do the math on whether that's going to make financial sense for you. I'll tell you, you can also pay the door price, cash, check, credit card, or express. For lunch, it's oh gosh, I wrote this down. Pardon me, Pam, I'm going to turn my back on you. I want to make sure I'm right, because they changed on me. $8.75 for lunch and $9.85 for dinner. Breakfast is $7.90. I know that sounds like a lot, but it is all you can eat. And it really, I can confidently say this, it's the best food on campus. I really believe it. And so you can walk in and get a salad bar, get entrees, get dessert, get a drink for that price. If you do the math on the meal plans, not all of them come out. Like if you took the total you paid for the meal plan divided by the meals purchased, not all of them most of them are a little over that $8.75, but a little below that $9.85. So if your student's mostly going to be eating lunches on campus, the meal plan might not make the most financial sense. But if they're going to eat a lot of dinners on campus as well, I've talked to especially folks who are commuters but are on an athletic team where they have evening practices and then probably go get dinner afterwards. That might make a lot of financial sense. So it's up to you. You're going to have to figure it out on your own. But I think another great tool, besides the cash, check, and credit card, is the Express account. I know they briefly mentioned it in the last session. That's where you can deposit money or charge it to the student account, and basically it turns their ID into a debit card that they can just swipe and it'll charge that door price. Express is really great too, because if you can pay cash or check, anything over $50, you get a 5% bonus. So if you put a $100 check down to put $100 on their card, they actually get $105 to spend. So I won't say free money, but bonus money at least. And Express rolls over to semester to semester, year to year. And anything that's left over when the student graduates, over $5, is refunded. So if you could write $1 million check today, don't. But first off, you'd get, $1.05 million on Express, and anything they didn't spend in their 4 years here, you'd get back. So it's a really flexible option that gives them both the option to eat in the view, as well as any of the a la carte dining options on campus. And it can only be used in select locations versus cash, check, or credit card, which can be spent a whole lot of other places. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. There's still plenty of other options as well related to food. Off-campus student services, in our resource room, we have a full-size refrigerator and freezer, so if your student's bringing lunches, they can dump it in there in the morning. We're open 8 to 5:30 every day, so they can get it out at lunch or dinner time pretty much. We just clean it out on Fridays, so don't. Our off-campus student services resource room, which the commuter session at the end of the day on y'all's name tag will bring you and your student up to that space. We'll show you that space so that they know where to go, when they're here in the fall, and talk about some of the other programs and resources we have out of that space. Try not to repeat myself too much, but so that's a great option as well if they're bringing something. Another option, and this is about free food, deals with getting involved and connected on campus. So that's my transition into my third piece. Our own institutional research here at St. Thomas shows that students who are connected to or involved in at least 2 or 3 things outside of class but part of the university, so an on-campus job, research with a professor, a club or organization, some kind of extra outside of the classroom connection, involvement that connects them to the community, those students actually have better GPAs. They tend to be more satisfied with their St. Thomas experience, and they tend to be more likely to stay and graduate in 4 years. So we think it's a good thing to be involved on campus. One of the things I think we do at St. Thomas that is great, that's especially for commuters related to this, is this thing called Convo Hour. Don't work too much up about it. It's short for convocation, but the students will just call it Convo Hour in the first 2 days of being here. From about 11:30 until 1:15, every Tuesday and Thursday during the school year, there's no class during that time. So when your student gets their schedule at the end of the day today, they won't have anything scheduled during that time. That's a time set aside in the middle of the day for our community to come together, for different campus-wide events to happen. And many of those student clubs or organizations that we've talked about a couple of times already today meet during that time. So I think clubs and organizations specifically are a no-brainer. Pretty much every major has a club or organization attached to it. So if your student's an engineering major, it makes a lot of sense to be involved in the engineering club. They're connecting with people who share that same interest. They're going to hear speakers or network with folks who are in the field working in those kind of areas. And again, pretty much any major has those kind of connections. So. And because they're meeting over that kind of lunchtime, noon hour, most of the clubs and orgs, when they meet during that time, have free food. Or at least food that someone else that has been paid for by the student activities fee. So twice a week, if your student has a club that meets every week on a Tuesday and every week on a Thursday, it's probably going to be pizza both times, but they can eat. So that's another, and connect with other people who share those same interests. I think it's a great thing. When I was an undergrad, I didn't go here, but where I went, we didn't have something like that. And so clubs and orgs met at 9 o'clock at night. And if you were an off-campus student and left after class was done, you weren't going to come back for a club meeting late at night. This, during the middle of the day, I think is a wonderful time. My tip is, if your student has a schedule that either has them done with class on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11:30, or for some reason not starting class until 1:15 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, that they really try to work it out to be on campus during that convo hour, that they either stay later or come earlier so that they can take part in those things. Beyond that, especially if your student is commuting from home, you're going to want to start having conversations with them now about what your hopes and our expectations are about time at home versus time on campus, how they're going to balance that out and connect and engage, while at the same time fulfilling the responsibilities and expectations you all have for them living at home. And so that's a good conversation to have now, rather than 2 weeks into the semester when they're studying late in the library until midnight and then coming home, and that's a problem for you, or whatever it might be. But just making sure you're engaging in those conversations. Even though the clubs and orgs meet over that noon hour, that doesn't mean that we don't have plenty of stuff happening in the early evenings or late in the evenings and sometimes into the night that your student might be interested in partaking in and could be a really great opportunity. So make sure to watch out for that and encourage your student as they're able to connect with those kind of things. And I flew through my involvement stuff. I want to highlight one program specifically that Off-Campus Student Services does for first-year students. I have two others that I could talk about, but we're not going to have time. So that's my teaser to get you to stick around until the end of the day for that commuter info session at 4:30. I keep it to about 15 minutes, I promise. I know it'll feel like a long day at the end of the day, and you'll just want to go. I'd love the chance to meet your student, show them our space, and talk about the programs we do specifically for them. But one of those I'm going to talk about now is our Commuter Resident Partnership Program. Don't worry about the name, remember what it does. If your student signs up for this program, we pair them up with a residence hall floor. So they become an honorary member of that community. They get invited to all of the floor programs. The RA includes them on all their emails about things that are happening, floor dinners, those kind of things they get invited into. And to facilitate that, Residence Life graciously gives them card access to the residence halls. So our residence halls are secured 24/7. If the only way to get into them is if either someone who lives there lets you in or you swipe your ID as a resident and enter. People who don't live in the halls typically can't swipe their ID to enter. If your student signs up for this program, they can. And so that makes connecting with that floor that they're paired with that much easier. And it's a first-year floor, so it's fellow first years they're connecting with. So if they have some time between classes and they've made friends with people in that community, they can swipe their ID and go visit them. And what's really great, and this is another great thing Residence Life does, is they actually extend the access to all of the residence halls from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. And so if your student is making friends in class that live in a different hall than the one they're paired with, they can still use this access to go and visit those friends. Or if they have friends from high school that are living on campus that they want to connect with, they can do that way as well. It's a really great opportunity. I've networked with plenty of people who do commuter and off-campus work at plenty of other different colleges. No one is doing this, and I don't know why, because it's just brilliant. I didn't come up with it, so I'm not calling me brilliant. Because it really, again, that 10% versus 90% helps these students feel connected and engaged to the 90% that are living on campus. I really recommend it. We have a sign-up sheet for it. You do have to actively sign up. We can't just default people into it. Commuter Resident Partnership Program. Here's what you do. When you go to the information fair with your student today, either right after this session or right after lunch, grab them and drag them down to the far end of the information fair on the left. The off-campus student services table will be there. My student Kendra will be working, who's been commuting all of her years here. It's the only sign-up sheet on the table. You just say, hey, this person needs to sign up for something. She'll help get you connected to it. So I don't even care if you explain it in too much detail to your student other than this sounds great, you should sign up for it. That's fine by me. I think it's worth it. I just don't get a chance to talk to them about it before the information fair, which is the best time to sign up. We will have the sign-up sheet at the end of the day again as well, in case for some reason you don't get a chance to get them down there at the information fair.
What are the building hours?
Oh, great question. So Anderson Student Center opens at 6:30 in the morning on weekdays, and it's open late. I think it's close to midnight on the weekdays as well. I'm going to blank on that. I know they post them online. Library is open about those same hours as well. Some of the others close earlier than that, but really between the library and this building, those are the two places commuters are hanging out and spending time if they have downtime.
Are there lockers?
There are, yeah. So we'll walk you by them when we bring you to off-campus student services, but Tommy Central, which is the main info desk in this building, rents out lockers in this building for $5 a semester. Again, to me, for a whole semester, $5.
And they're assigned to that one locker?
Yep, they're assigned to a one locker. They're given the combination for it. No one else has it. I know students that open it and put like ramen cup of soups in there, and that's all they have, because if they forget lunch, they at least have something. Don't put anything that would spoil in there would be my only tip. But dumping books that you don't need to bring home, winter coat when you're in this building, those kind of things are great for the lockers. And they have a bunch of them on the second floor of this building and also in the basement. So they're right outside our off-campus student services resource room.